Hello, Dave here. This MiniMorsel is moving your local XAMPP site to a shared host. So we have here MiniMorsel local site to move, and it's on my local host here. And out here is my domain, wp-config.php, and I have a temp site out here, and we want to replace that with this local site. So what's our plan? We have 5 basic areas. 1 is our prep work, 2, our local site export, standing up our future site, activating the future site, then wrapping everything up so that we are live. Let's go ahead and start at step 1. And let's look at our toolkit first. So I'm defining in our toolkit, always number 1 thing is the codex. So let's take a look at that codex page. And this is the moving WordPress page from wordpress.org. And I recommend you at least read it, but that's everything we're doing is from here. And if it isn't, then I made a mistake. So going back, next piece is FileZilla. And this is my FileZilla client. I have my local site here, and I'm going to make a connection to my future site. All right, that's Wyman Solutions. Now I'm connected to my future site, and I have access. So move that out of the way. That's a key piece of our toolkit. All right, and then we're going to use cPanel for our future site, and I'll be logging into cPanel when we get down to that step, and be using PHP-MyAdmin, both PHP-MyAdmin on the local host and PHP-Admin on the future site through cPanel. And also Windows Explorer to get to all of our pieces of the puzzle. Right now, I have 3 Windows Explorer sessions for easy access. One is going to my actual local host. This is our actual site that we wish to move, that we've developed. And you'll see it's a standard WordPress site with the content includes an admin. I also have one going to my basic work area for moving my site, and one for my downloads, because when I export the database, it's going to go into my download directory. Notepad++, that's what this is in right here, and this is where we will be doing the editing of both config.php, which is part of step 4, and our SQL statements that we will be doing for setting these future values for the site URL and the post content. And we'll be using Notepad++ for that. 7-zip. Again, another wonderful piece of freeware, but this is what we use to compress our file before FTPing it up. And depending on how big your file is, I mean, you can do that or not do that. It's your convenience. It just saves on transmission time. So it might save you a few minutes, but there's no big rush. And I just included here a link to that codex page, this page here, that link, just so it's documented and you have it, and everything is in the codex. Well, we might as well start at step 1. We looked at the toolkit. Let's go ahead and do a quick little local site review. So here's the local site, and put a couple of posts out here. Right, this is original stuff. I did load the WordPress test data just to have all these posts and categories, but I created a little MiniMorsel category, and we have these 3 posts that I put out there. I also put a post with a couple of links in here because that's part of the tricky activities that we fix. And you see everything's pointing to localhost. Let's take a look at the dashboard. And you see there's 26 posts, 12 pages. Right? We want to verify that these are all in there. I put in a couple of comments myself. These are comments that exist in the test data. You know, even the hello world comment. Let's take a look at our themes. I pulled down a theme called Easel, and that's my current active theme. I also have another theme I was checking out called Spring Festival. There's 2011 and there's 2010. So let's take a look at that in our actual data, which is why I have a Windows Explorer session going to my MiniMorsel site move directory here. And if we go into content and themes, we'll see that we have Easel, Spring Festival, 2011 and 2010. There's our 4 themes. Let's look at plugins. And I have, you know, the normal ones that come with the delivery here, Askamet and Hello or Kismet and Hello Dolly. I've added the Crayon Syntax Highlighter, Fancy Boxify, and the WordPress importer. This was used for, the importer was used to bring in the test data. The Fancy Boxify is for pictures, and the Crayon Syntax Highlighter is for showing code. So going back to the site for a second, here's a picture. There's that Fancy Boxify. Just pops it up like that. And here's another picture. So I uploaded those pictures. Let's go back into content here and uploads 2012 05, and here's the pictures that I've uploaded. And you see there's different sizes and everything, but everything is within this directory. So if I take that whole directory, which is our plan, and move it, we should have all of the pieces that we've added to it. Now going back here again, here's what our site is going to look like. Here's the Crayon plugin for the syntax highlighting. And it's actually showing, this is the wp-config file, and these are the items we're going to end up changing later on in our plan. So here's our local site. Future site is on standby. So here's our future site. If I type wymannewsolutions.com, why don't we spell it correctly? And it comes up with our temp site here, so we can see the difference. But eventually, when I type wymannewsolutions.com, I want to have our new site show up, and that's making it live. All right, and our final step here is a plugin review. Remember, there are certain specialty plugins that can impact things in various ways, so check your plugins None of my plugins luckily cause any issues, but I've heard various issues related to data serialization and those kind of things. So review each of your plugins. Let's take another quick look back at WP content and plugins, and you'll see here's the plugins that I have installed. Okay, so that's step one, prep. We're ready to go. Time to move on to step two. First thing we want to do is do our local site export, and we're going to move our WordPress application. Our WordPress application is, let me bring that up again here, is moving this, everything is within this directory. So I'm going to go up a directory, and I'm going to 7-zip and add this to an archive. And I'm going to browse where I want this archive to go. And I want it to go to a different location here. And I'm going to place it here. And I'm going to call this ready to go. MiniMorsel site move.zip in that directory. And let's create it. Done. That was pretty simple. And if I bring up this Windows Explorer, which is why I had them open, I see that this zip is ready to go. Let's go back to our plan here. Our next item is the database export. So let's go to PHP MyAdmin and go into databases. Now once again, I'm on localhost, and I go to my MiniMorsel site move, which is, I just happen to name the database locally, the same name as the directory. Does not have to be. We go to export. I'm just going to show custom here. You could probably just do a quick and zip it out. Select all, unselect all. Key thing is select all. We're going to move every table, and we're going to save it to an output file, and it defaults to just naming the file that it creates the name of the database. I'm going to put ready to move database in front of it, just so we can know what we're dealing with here. And I don't really need to mess around with any other settings. Click a little go, and you see down here that I have a ready to move. That's in my downloads. I can close that off of there because I have my Windows Explorer session to my downloads, and here's that file. I'm going to copy it and place it in my work folder. Let's paste that. So now I have, here's the site, and here's the SQL export. Now what do we need to do on our plan? So we've completed the WordPress application export and the database export. Let's start standing up our future site. So within stand up our future site, the WordPress Application Install, let's get that guy up there. And our tool to do that is FileZilla. I've created a subdirectory to my home directory, that is not within public HTML called MiniMorsel save, and this just gives me a place to put our actual site. So let me bring up, here's our data, right? Here's our zip, the ready to go site move.zip. Well, let's go ahead and move it up to our site. And it's queued and it's moving, and it's about 10 meg. Let's see how we coming along here. Queuing and still running. Let's do something else useful in the meantime while that guy is working. And then we need to do our database activities, right? So we have to create and import our database and user on the new site. And it's done. Let's create, well, let's finish up. Let's move on to the new site here. Anyway, this FileZilla session, it has completed. You see that we have our ready to go live zip here, and the queue is empty. Process is complete. So that has been moved up. Now we want to go ahead and get into our cPanel. All right, here's our cPanel. And if I go to File Manager, Home Directory, I have my MiniMorsel save directory here. And you see I have the ready to go MiniMorsel zip here. And remember, I am going to use the same name for the directory that I use down here, which is site-move. And if you change that to a different directory name, you do have to modify your htaccess in that file. But anyway, let's extract. And where do I want this site to go? I'm going to go to public underscore HTML, right? Because I want to move it to the real world. And the name of the directory is site-move. And let's delete the rest of that. Make sure it's spelled correctly. Again, I'm using this same basic htdocs, right? htdocs is the same as public HTML, only that's my localhost public.html. And the site-move is the actual subdirectory name. So let's extract those files. Done. And if I come out and look at public.html, I have a site-move directory. And just navigating, and let's take a look at themes. And here's our 4 themes. So everything looks pretty happy. So that's File Manager. We now have our WordPress application is now installed, which is what we just did with that extract. Sorry for zipping that thing back and forth here. Just want to show, so now let's do our database activities. We need to create a database. We need to create a user for that database. This allows WordPress to talk to it, and we need to import our data that we exported earlier. And we're going to use, from our cPanel here, we're going to use our MySQL and databases. So let's create a database, and I'm going to call this database MMSM for MiniMorsel site move. Let's create it. Got a database. And let's create a user, and I want to call this MiniMorsel user. And the password is going to be MiniMorsel pass 01 and MiniMorsel pass 01 again. Let's create our user. And let's allow our user connected to the database. So our user, MiniMorsel user, and our database, MiniMorsel site move. Let's add it. And give it all privileges. So it does need to be able to do everything. That's what we want to give WordPress the ability to do. And now we have a database, MMSM, with a user. And there's nothing in that database. But let's go back to the cPanel here. And if I go into PHP MyAdmin, go ahead and sign in. And I see I have a database out here. And very nice. There's nothing in it, right? No tables found in database. Well, let's take care of that. Now we're going to import. And just to show you, right, here we are. We created the database and user, and now we're ready to import. So we're almost finished with step 3. I know this is taking a long time. Here we go. So we import. Let's choose our file. And I'm pointing to, so navigate to where you put your extract. And that's why I put my database extract into this location. To make it easy, I could navigate to my download location. It doesn't matter. But here's our ready to move database, MiniMorsel site move SQL. So we'll go ahead and choose that file. And click go. Look at this. Import has been successfully finished. It did 37 queries. Here is our database. So let's go back to the database view. And our next steps here are setting these, editing the config, which tells WordPress which database it's talking to, and these are the actual values within the database. So let's just take a brief look at those while we're in here. If I look at the options table, for example, you see site URL is still equal to localhost site move. That's what we're going to be changing next. I'm just going to go ahead and click to the SQL tab here. And we have our data in there. And our future site activation, step 4, starts now. First thing we do is edit the config.php. Well, let's get that config.php. And we use our FileZilla. Now let's navigate to our public.html. Our new site, MiniMorsel site move. Ooh, that's not good. Okay, I made a mistake here, right? I have 2 levels with the same name here. Let's fix it. I'm going to rename this to need delete. So that's now renamed, and I'm going to move this subdirectory to public.html, and let's refresh that. And here's MiniMorsel site move now, and that's our WordPress right underneath there. Let's go ahead and get rid of this thing. Sorry for that mistake. That was a mistake on the extract piece, but we just resolved it. We want this directory to be immediately under this directory, and it needs to contain all this data. And notice here we have our wp-config.php. That's the guy we want to change. And if I bring up move my site work area, let's copy this guy over here. Right now I have him ready to change. Let's edit with Notepad++. Right, we have our plan here, and here's our file to change. And we need to put in the database name, which is myMenu_MMSM, right? And I know that because of this, right? And if I go back to the local host level, and this database, I don't see the privileges there. I would have to go back to MySQL databases here, right? And I see that I have the database name and the username for here. So database name, MyMenu_S, the username, MyMenu_MMuser. Yep, that looks correct. And I made it MMPass01. And luckily, it is localhost. And most places it is. If you have a different hosting vendor, you'll have to modify that also. So wp-config, done. Move that out of the way. Right, so now we have the wrong Windows Explorer window. Here's the right one, and here's my updated wp-config. Handy dandy FileZilla. Here's that file that I've changed. So let's put the new one up here. Now look at that. It says one already exists. Well, of course it does. I just moved it a minute ago. Let's go ahead and overwrite it. I'm going to say OK. So now we have our config.php file out there. Come back to our plan. Set future values for the site URL and home. In order to do this, let's go back to our work area here, and I have some database update SQLs for us to run. And here they are, and we'll take a look at them. Okay, remember, we're getting close. Here's our plan, and we're down here setting these values. Second to the final step. Oops, sorry. So let's go ahead and copy the first statement here, and we'll talk about it as we execute it. Come back out to our PHP MyAdmin, go to the SQL window, pop that statement in there, and again, I'm just doing a select here. So step one is let's just see what we're about to change. Here's the update statement. We're going to do that next, but let's just take a brief look first. So if I click Go, it brings up these two instances. Here's home and site URL, and right now they're pointing to localhost, and that's what we need to fix. So going back to our SQL, and I'm just copying and pasting out of that file. Let's paste that in, and now I need to put in my new site. So this is going to be wp-config.php, and the directory is site move. And let's go. Two rows affected, all good. And let's, just for the fun of it, I'm going to recopy that original statement back in here. And now we see here's our new values that we updated. Okay, one more to do. And we need to do the same thing by actually, I have these down here, moving into the post. Inside the post content, this gets our values that are needed for links embedded into posts. And for example, this link right here, you see that it's pointing down at the bottom of the page there to localhost MiniMorsel site move. Well, that link needs to be updated, and that is part of the post content. So coming back to our SQL statement and loading this statement, I'm going to copy that in there, paste it, and let's see which ones have local host / MiniMorsel site move. And the percent signs say any text after and any text before. So just a couple wildcard characters in there. And here we see there's 14 posts or 14 rows in the WP post table with those values in there. And here they are. You will notice that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are actual published status. One is a page and the other are posts. The other one I'm not going to worry about. It probably would have made sense for me to clean out my revisions before moving my site. So I'd call that a sloppy move. Hopefully, if you don't have too many, or that would be a cleanup step once I consider everything live, but it really was a waste of bandwidth to move these revisions. But once again, now I found which ones we need to change, 14 of them. Let's go ahead and make the change. Copy my command. And I'll have this posted on davecoast.com, or you can just type them in. You see that it's not that complex. But just doing a search and replace. So I'm going to change local host / site move to wp-config site move. And let's click go. And 14 rows were affected. Makes sense. And if we, let me copy this statement. Not worth it. Anyway, so now we have all of our data and we're set up. Let's go back to our plan. So we set our future values. Then you need to go into one-off special fixes for anything that you have to do related to your site. Again, I don't have any. My plugins are pretty straightforward, but some of them, you know, and there's so many options out there. 60 million WordPress sites. Know your plugins and double check and see if you have to do something special. So let's go ahead and wrap things up. Let's go ahead and sign into our site and verify our dashboard settings. So if I come back here to my new location and I go to www.solutions.com, I don't know why I never want to type that .com/mm site move. Wow, here's our site. Let's sign in, go to the dashboard, and verify our settings. So I'm going to come down to my login page, right? And I'm still at wp-config.php. Let's sign in with admin, and I think it's pass for this guy. And it is, and here's our 26 posts, right? That should match the same. Here's our local site. Let's go to that dashboard, localhost 26125349. Right, wp solutions. I'm going to save password there. 26125349. So far, looking pretty good. Step 1, general settings. Right, here's those two values that we changed with that first update SQL statement. Right now, it's pointing to the right place for both of those. Right, so let's check settings. Let's look at themes, menus, and plugins. So appearance, themes. I see my 4 themes. And again, I'm sticking with my easel themes. Let's look at menus, because this has a special menu here. And if I look at the home on the menu, the navigation label, I'm going to call this new live. But notice that this URL did not change. I'm not sure where the database change for that is. So I'm going to manually change that to wp-solutions.com. So there's a theme-related specific item that I had to change manually after the fact. I guess I could have done some research and found out where that was. But if I come back out to my site, now you see that I have a new live here, whereas on the local site, it's home. So if I click home there, I'm still on localhost. If I click on new live here, it gets lost because I did not put in the wp solutions. So let's fix that. Ooh, put the S there. All right, we'll get this figured out someday. Let's go back to our dashboard, menus, learn how to spell correctly. That looks a little bit better. Let's save that. Go back to our site. Okay, so that worked. Now let's fix this title so it's a little more obvious. So I'll go back to the dashboard, settings, general, and let's go ahead and change this to new live MiniMorsel site. Yippee. And this site is now live. I'm putting that in the tagline, even though if you look at this guy, you can't even see the tagline. Let's save those changes. Now when I go to this site, I get the new live MiniMorsel site. And if I look at my old site, right, so if I go to this post here, I'm still in my local site. And if I go to this post in my new site, oh, look at that, I'm still in my new live site. Let's go to config, post, new live site, yay. Let's go back to home. There's our home page. Let's do a little MiniMorsel category page. Brings those up, looking good. Right, I'm still in my new live site. So far, so good. I have a comment here, and it shows my comment on my live site. And if I go to recent comments or recent posts through this link, yes, that link works. Oh, my Windsor Castle picture and the fancy box. Right, so things are looking pretty good. Right, my old site, still fine and dandy. New site, happy as can be. So verify our dashboard settings. Let's, whoops, come back up here. And if we look at plugins, we see the same active plugins. Here's the 3 that I added, our Crayon, Fancy Boxify, and the WordPress importer. And there's, you know, the old site, same thing. Anyway, here's our site. So I verified those dashboard settings. Verify site is operational, including links, pics, and comments. And that's what we've just been doing. Flipping around here, making sure we can bring up these pictures. Nice and pretty, and we're on our site, and our menu is working. Let's go ahead and do our redirect. So that, because right now if I type wp-config.php, I still come up to this temporary site, as opposed to our new live site. So let's fix that. And this is our final step. So I'll go back to cPanel. Go to my redirects. And you see I have a redirect out here right now going to that theme dev 1. That's why we showed that temporary site. I'm going to remove that redirect. And let's add a new redirect. So it's going to be permanent. I want to do it for my ymaneusolutions.com, and I want to redirect it to http ymaneusolutions.com. Right now that's theme dev 1. I want to make it MiniMorsel site move. And I want to redirect it with or without the www. I'll click add. It has been redirected. Did I put the S on the end there? Yes, I did, for a change. So let's check that out. So now if I do ymaneusolutions.com with nothing else, Still goes to the old place, but I think that's because I'm caching that in my browser. Whoops, let me... There we go. Give it a moment to decache. And our new site is live and happy. Let's go to our file manager out here. And we will lymanewsolutions.com it again, just to see it in another place. And ta-da, our new site is live and ready for action. So according to our plan, we've redirected, right? And that did a cPanel update of htaccess for the site, and we're now live. Thank you very much for watching.